First Fink episode of the year. You got to get fired up for this one, huh? We're going to have a little dialogue about what the best division in baseball may be. There's some bias on this episode because Fink has the Mets flag. I've got the Marlins. I've got the Marlins. I don't know what this is. It's not a hoodie. It's not like a sweater. It's just kind of an over jacket type thing. But we'll make the case for the NL East. I'm also watching Arizona play right now, and the NL West is really darn good. Spencer Strider returned yesterday. Got to talk about that. And Juan Soto had some interesting comments, so obviously we got to chat with the Mets guy about that. It is the Just Baseball Show. As always, it is presented by our friends at BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Today is April 17th. Long time no chat on these airwaves, Fink. We always loved having you on last year, and I think the working plan right now is you're going to hop on probably, I don't know, once, maybe twice a month or so, just when, schedule allows, and we're going to chop it up, talk some ball, huh?
Yeah, get some more pinch hitting opportunities this year. Happy to do it. So excited to talk a little bit of just everything instead of just the Mets. Although I guess we might start with a little bit of Mets stuff anyway.
We're going to start with some Met stuff just because there's some unnecessary drama here, and it stems from Juan Soto. And as weird as it sounds, it feels like there's some unnecessary drama that kind of follows him in a lot of different capacities. When he signed with the Mets, Aaron Judge was asked what the communication with Soto was like during the offseason, and he said there was none. And that was the first thing that I was like, that's kind of interesting. And then Soto had a chat with Mike Puma of the New York Post, and he said this earlier this week, quote, about being pitched differently, maybe being pitched around a bit more than he was last year. He said, quote, it's definitely different. I had the best hitter in baseball hitting behind me last season in Aaron Judge. I was getting more attacked and more pitches in the strike zone. I was pitched different last year. Now, there's a lot to take away from that. I do have Aaron Judge's comments on the heels of that because he was kind of asked about those comments. And Judge said that he didn't want to go back and forth on this, but he said, quote, he's got probably one of the best hitters in the game behind him right now with what Pete Alonso is doing. It's been fun to watch. He's hitting 345 and driving the ball all over the field, driving guys in. So they're going to be just fine. I've seen Soto now watching the league for so many years and getting a chance to see him up close. He can look at what I did last April for an example of he just needs to keep being himself. He's going to be just fine. I found this whole saga really interesting because Soto, like, did it sort of kind of feel like he was throwing his entire Mets roster under the bus here with that one or no?
So to me, Juan Soto has never been more a Met because the overreaction to this story and the sports talk radio of it, and it's just this is where players get in trouble for answering a question honestly. And I don't think, especially if you get into some of the follow-up quotes that Soto has in the story, he goes on to say that basically, he's going to do what he can to pass the baton to the next guy. And he's not going to force it. He says, I'm not trying to be selfish or anything, try to hit home runs every time. I'm just trying to take my pitches, take my swings whenever I can. And when they don't want to, I pass the baton to my teammates. He talked about how they should be attacking pitchers as a team, not individually. So I don't think there's a single person in the Mets clubhouse, including Pete Alonso, that raised an eyebrow about what Juan Soto said because the reality is he is getting pitched differently. Despite the fact that Pete Alonso has gotten off to a great start, a couple days ago, they still intentionally walked Juan Soto to get to the guy that's leading the National League in OPS because it's still Pete Alonso, not Aaron Judge. And so I don't think that Soto said anything wrong, but at the same time, Mike Puma went into the Mets clubhouse in Minnesota trying to get to an angle of Juan Soto misses his Aaron Judge protection. And a guy who's been in these circuits for decades, and Mike Puma knew the question to ask, got an honest answer, and was able to put it up on Post Plus, the exclusive service of the New York Post, the very next day, and got all the traffic that he wanted to.
Yep. So he kind of won that game. And it's funny, like Mike Puma also wrote an article when the Mets were in Miami asking Lindor and Soto about the possibility of the Mets acquiring Sandy Alcantara. And that ruffled a lot of feathers here. So you know what? He may know what he's doing when it comes to curating an article. I like that you bring that up because I do think it is underrated just how professional some of these guys are, especially in a market like New York. Alonso, Lindor, number one, they probably didn't even see that article, didn't see the quote. Number two, if they do see it, it rolls off their shoulders because they play for the New York Mets, much like what was happening when you play for the New York Yankees. People write, people talk all the freaking time about you. There are people that have careers chatting about what you say.
R-
And yep,
Right here,
bingo,
man.
right here for me, right here for you as well. We make a living talking about what these guys do and what they say. And this is just an opportunity to run with what Juan Soto said. I'm with you. I don't think anybody in the Mets clubhouse is raising an eyebrow on this, but it was a little interesting, especially, 2 weeks after Soto said that he turned down offers of more money to sign with the New York Mets. I don't believe that one outright. I don't think that there was anyone offering more than $765 million. But if that's the case, tip of the cap to you, Juan Soto. You took a discount to go join the New York Mets on the richest contract in the history of North American sports. Bravo, man. But I don't know. This whole thing is interesting, and you're right. It does feel very New York. It feels very Met for a snippet of a full quote to be misconstrued and blown out of proportion here. I do appreciate Judge's rebuttal here because Pete Alonso has been one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball this year, and I'll use it as an opportunity to pivot to Alonso. There's a ton of protection in this lineup for Soto.
Absolutely. And I will say, Judge's answer speaks to a guy that's been in New York his entire career.
He
Like
knows how to talk. Yeah.
he knows if he says anything other than praising Pete Alonso is going to be a thing. So I mean, really, those two guys, Judge and Alonso, have been parallel to each other in this market, even though obviously Judge, way better MVP, everything else. But the way they've been covered, they've been sort of the faces of these New York teams, these sluggers, chasing the rookie home run record. So he knows if he says anything else other than what he said, it's going to be a big story. And he's able to just put an end to it. Juan Soto has spent a year in New York, but not quite a year as the face of the team and still sort of learning. That's where Lindor and Alonso and Judge, they're not going to fall into these stories as much. But yeah, Pete Alonso has been unbelievable. And it shows you why Juan Soto wanted Pete and wanted that protection because he has made teams pay time and again this year when they do pitch around Soto. It's Pete Alonso coming through. I haven't seen Pete look this locked in some respects, maybe ever. But I would say, 2019 is rookie season, 2022, those were the years where, you saw Pete Alonso look a little bit like this, but just a complete hitter this year in a way that we haven't seen. The chase is gone, everything. He just, to me, it's a guy that found his confidence in the playoffs, and he hasn't let go of that.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. And Alonso, like just the raw numbers on him through 17 games, hitting 356 with seven doubles, five homers, and 20 driven in. Oh, by the way, walking more than he struck out. He's only K'd 10 times in 73 plate appearances, and the 1195 OPS is one of the best marks in baseball. Tying a bow on Soto, it's funny, like, and again, the final encapsulation of this being a New York Met thing struggles, early season struggles, quote unquote. Juan Soto is getting on base at a 392 clip through his first 17 games as a Met. He's walked five more times than he's K'd, and he has an 859 OPS.
Isn't
That's
that
an
crazy?
that's an
And
amazing year for so many other people.
it's crazy that he has struggled though. Like when you watch him, he definitely does not look like Juan Soto, and yet it's still unbelievable production for anybody else. Yeah, he's gonna be just fine. Juan Soto he's homered back-to-back games, so he's already started to heat up a little bit. He'll be okay, I think.
And this is what separates a tier one player from a tier two player, I think, where we talk about struggles being an 859 OPS. Everybody was talking about Aaron Judge having a horrible month of April last year by his standards. And I'm pulling up his splits right now. If I'm not mistaken, like that OPS was still above league average. Aaron Judge last year in the month of April when he sucked, quote unquote, had an 811 OPS. Did he hit 220? Yeah, but he still had six homers in the month and he slugged 450. That's tier one. That is what separates the great from the elite. And Judge is elite. Soto is elite. Otani is elite. So even their bad months are not going to be an OPS in the 600s. They're going to be in the 800s. And then they elevate to the thousands and the 1100s OPS over the course of a given month when they're really on. And that is what separates Judge, Soto, Otani. I think Bobby Witt is in that conversation too, from guys like I mean, like a Julio Rodriguez, to be honest. That guy is, a rough month is him OPSing the 600s, and then a great month is him OPSing in the thousands, and all of a sudden that ends up 780, 790. So this guy, even the struggles are really darn solid. But yeah, I just thought that was a whole thing that didn't really need to exist, but here we are, and there were some clicks that came out of it, and all is right in New York Mets land. Spencer Strider is back for the Atlanta Braves. That's the next thing that I want to hit on before we get to the power ranking of the divisions, I guess. Strider, when he ended his rehab assignment, was the International League leader in strikeouts. He was amazing over the course of that rehab, kind of ramp up with Gwinnett, the Stripers at the AAA level. Spencer Strider across, what was it, three starts, I want to say, in Gwinnett. Yeah, three starts, 13 and two-thirds innings, five hits, two runs, five walks. And in 13 and two-thirds, he struck out 27, and opponents were 5 for 45 against him. Strider is back for the Atlanta Braves that currently sit at 5 and 12. When do you, as somebody else within the division, start to hover over the panic button for Atlanta? They're 7 games under 500 right now. I've said a couple of times on this show, I've gotten nowhere close to even thinking about hovering over the panic button. Would you give it till the end of May to hover over it? I mean, you get Strider back, you got Acuna back in a couple of weeks too.
I think the Houston Astros last year taught us not to get too crazy about these early season results, especially because of having a Spencer Strider that you can add to the fold here. We had a great story that went up today. Spencer Strider won't save the Braves himself, but he will help. And it's just I think the mental boost more than just the production. I mean, obviously when he goes on the mound, it seems like he's going to be the Spencer Strider we all remember. But just getting that jolt, and then the jolt that they're going to get when Acuna comes back. I think for me, until we see Acuna back in this lineup and see it for a little bit and see how everyone responds to getting that jolt, it's hard to write off the Braves. And it might be hard to write off the Braves for me until even June, because I could just see them at some point still having the ingredients to go on one of those runs where they might only lose a couple times in a month and just get right back into the standings. So yes, it's been a really bad start, and all of the math is against them when it's teams who start 0-7 have never made the playoffs and all these different things. But at the same time, it's the Atlanta Braves, and they have owned this division forever. So I can't at this very moment proclaim them dead on April 16th. There's no way.
No, me too. And I'm thinking like, okay, they've gotten a little hot. I just looked at their last 10. They're 5 and 5 in their last 10. And, that's not hot by Atlanta standards. Hot by Atlanta standards is winning 9 of your last 10 and going on an 8-game winning streak. And that's what they can do. If this was another team, like for example, in this division, let's say that was Washington that started 5 and 12 or started the way they did through the first 7 games. They were 0 and 7 or 0 and 8, whatever Atlanta was. I would borderline declare Washington dead because that's just too much in this division. But Atlanta has earned the right to be looked at in a different light. I think Atlanta is looked at in the same way that the Dodgers should be looked at, the third place LA Dodgers right now, might I add. But, if San Francisco fell behind, I don't think they're catching up. But the Dodgers can rattle off a month to your point where they lose 4 games, 5 games in a month. That's what Atlanta can do. I understand that Spencer Schwellenbach got roughed up a little bit on Tuesday. He allowed 6 runs on Tuesday night. But when you can run out a front three of Strider, Sale, Schwellenbach, and then backfill it with Smith Shawver and whoever else you may want to, that's too dangerous, especially with this lineup and Acuna coming back. This lineup can get as hot as a match right away. Like I don't know. In terms of the way that I value them and the respect that I have for that Braves roster and that Braves lineup, I think it's only beaten by the Dodgers in Major League Baseball at this point.
Yeah, I think so. And maybe the Padres are getting there just because they've been so great to start this season. But yeah, it's just there's so much history of the Braves figuring it out. Even last year, I mean, to go through what they went through to still find their way into the playoffs, I'm just not gonna give up on them until it's like abundantly obvious that they just don't have it. I will say I am starting to wonder if this season does go sideways. Like I would think that we're going to see them clean house with the coaching staff and try something different because they're so locked into the core that they have that if they have another year, especially with the lineup where it's, where's that Braves team from 2023? All the guys are still there. Maybe they'll make some wholesale changes, but again, it's April. So it's still early to really think about any of that. Just at some point they should get back to being the Braves.
And even then, I think everybody on the coaching staff has earned the right to come back in 26 if they want to. And I know that Brian Snitker kind of has a deal that he will go out on his own terms. By no means, I think you were insinuating, oh, Brian Snitker will have to go. But Snitker, I know it's kind of been up in the air whether he wants to manage in 25, whether he wants to manage beyond 2025. So, yeah, maybe if this year goes sideways, he's like, you know what, I think I'm good. We'll turn this over to somebody else. But Brian Snitker is one of the best managers in Major League Baseball, and he just got Spencer Strider back. So, I mean, listen, he should be able to sleep a lot easier knowing that he's got one of the best arms in baseball back. I am curious from a Mets perspective. Like, does Strider give you nightmares? Is there somebody else on that Braves team or maybe just in the division that you never want to see be on the probable pitchers?
I mean, Strider is definitely high on the list. Zach Wheeler is another one for sure. Obviously, the Mets ties make that one hurt a little bit more when you watch him.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, Strider, especially, you know, it's just looking at, I don't know, I feel like there's a chance, even though when Chris Sale locks in, it's a little bit tougher, but there's a chance that Chris Sale, can be hit. Like when Spencer Strider is locked in, I just don't know what you do with him. So yeah, I think Strider is pretty high up on that list of guys that you just don't want to ever see.
Sale is Sale on that list right now, especially after the Cy Young season, but he is kind of struggling out of the gates in 25.
Yeah, there's just he started off a little bit slow, and obviously, if you go beyond last year, we didn't go into the season thinking Chris Sale was going to win a Cy Young. So I just think there's maybe a little more you can do with him when he's not completely right. But it's like when Spencer Strider's on, it's just pretty hard to touch him.
Yep. All right, we're going to pivot to the best division in baseball conversation. We'll make a case for the NL East, the NL West, maybe the AL East, not the AL Central. All that coming up before that quick break. Time for the fun conversation. What's the best division in baseball? As it stands right now, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 teams with 10 or more wins. Four of those 11 reside in the National League West. I think we're going to make cases for the NL West, the NL East, and the AL East. The two that we can eliminate right away, I think, are the AL Central, which I believe is the worst division in baseball, and then the NL Central right ahead of it, I guess. If you were to power rank them 1 through 6, I think the AL Central is 6, the NL Central is 5. Any rebuttals there or no?
Not at all. It's funny because last year we definitely went into the season thinking that, and the AL Central turned into a pretty fun race. But at the same time, it doesn't look like they're going to be quite as good as they were last year. And yeah, I think it's pretty easy to eliminate them as 6 and NL Central 5. It's kind of weird that the talent seems to migrate to the coasts. Like when you just look at the star power on these rosters, it definitely feels like you mentioned those teams in the AL East, NL East, the NL or the AL West in particular, NL West. I don't know. They have a lot of talent.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you look at some teams and they've got some talent in those centrals. Like Kansas City obviously has Bobby Witt Jr. and Cole Reagans and guys like that. KC is probably the most talented team in the American League Central, but Detroit is good. They got Tarek Skubal, they got some bats that are hitting really well, and Detroit is a good team. They might be a playoff team this year. The Cubs are one of the best teams in baseball. Like, they've got some talent, but the Cubs are the outlier in that division. St. Louis is playing maybe better than you were expecting, but at the end of the day, the Cardinals are 8 and 9. Cincinnati has won 4 in a row, but at the end of the day, they're 9 and 8 right now. And you got Ellie De La Cruz, but it does feel a little flash in the pan ish and few and far between with the superstar talents. I'm with you. They move to the coasts. One division that I think is weird and I think is 4 on these power rankings, and I just want your thought on it, is the American League West because Houston has been underwhelming. They're 8 and 9 so far this year. Texas is a half game above the Angels, which is an underdog story, but the Angels, unfortunately, I'm not buying the hot start in a way that I think that they're going to be a postseason team. And am I buying like Individual performances like Kyron Paris, yeah, sure. Am I buying Mike Trout being Mike Trout? Yeah, sure. But as a team in the macro, I'm not necessarily buying it. Texas, I buy being really dangerous, but Texas has struggled in some individual outcomes. Like Marcus Semien was not good to open the year. Jacob deGrom has not looked like deGrom at this point. But for me, it's Houston and Seattle that are kind of the wild cards here. I would think if Houston and Seattle were really good and Seattle was executing their plan of pitching their way to 10 games over 500, then I would maybe side with the AL West being better than the NL East or something like that, just because you got Texas, Seattle, and Houston, but both those teams are underwhelming. It's the most confusing division in baseball for me, and I'm curious how you interpret the American League West.
We're looking at five teams that all have a negative run differential so far. Early sample size, but not having a single team with an above average run differential does speak volumes. I just think that the Astros not looking like the Astros definitely makes this division take a hit because that was the one thing is they had that one team that you sort of knew was going to be in the playoffs. I don't know if the Astros are going to be in the playoffs this year. I really don't. The American League itself is weak enough that you think they probably can still find their form at some point, but they don't have Bregman anymore. They don't have Kyle Tucker. And I think they got a lot of credit this offseason for how they were able to pivot and how they were able to still put together what looked like a strong lineup, but then we're watching it and it all of a sudden it feels like you can pitch against the Astros and find soft spots in that lineup to get around a Jordan and an Altuve and be just fine. So then I'm thinking, all right, the Astros maybe aren't a playoff team. The Mariners, how many years are we going to say they can't hit before we just accept that as, yeah, they haven't done enough to address that lineup, and I don't know if they're gonna take advantage of this golden opportunity to win with the starting pitching they have. The Angels have been a nice surprise. I think the A's are a fun team to watch for a bottom dweller, but it's still not a team that I think is going to make any noise this year. So yeah, the Rangers are the one team that I'm sort of interested to see what their best version looks like once they get there. But I don't see necessarily multiple playoff teams from this division, and obviously that's kind of a precursor to this discussion. You got to have multiple teams to be one of the best divisions in baseball.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And I'm just looking at offensive output in this division. It's funny that the three teams that we're talking about being legitimate, and Sacramento, I'm with you. Like the A's are hitting, the A's are not pitching. But I just sort by team OPS. And I'm looking at 22 through 24 in Major League Baseball, being the Mariners, the Astros, and the Rangers. The Mariners are 22nd in team OPS, the Astros are 23rd, and the Rangers are 24th. Seattle sitting at 667, but then you drop all the way down 634 team OPS for Houston, 630 team OPS for Texas. It's just not going to work. And I'm with you. Like, I'm growing tired of what's going on with Seattle because they've had opportunities with the best pitching rotation in Major League Baseball and that ballpark by their side, but it's just not working for them, even when they have guys like Jorge Polanco that are performing well. Houston is the one that interests me most because you look at that roster, everybody that has logged a single plate appearance for Houston, they have two guys OPSing over 700, Altuve and Isaac Paredes. Jordan through 17 games is a 695 OPS. And then you drop down like guys under 600 right now. Christian Walker is hitting a buck 64 with a 512. Mauricio Dubon hitting 160 with a 490 OPS. Yainer Diaz hitting 120. He's 6 for 50. He's got a 370 OPS. Like they just need guys that aren't Bregman and Tucker to start looking like Bregman and Tucker, as weird as that sounds. Obviously, I understand Tucker's going to get $400 million, maybe more, considering what Vladdy just got. And Bregman just got $40 million a year. I understand not bringing them back, but you need guys to perform a bit better. And obviously, Astros fans hoping that that's going to be shaking off the offseason rust in the month of April, and then they really start hitting in May. Would I be surprised if Houston looked like the best team in this division in 2 months? No, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they missed the postseason like you're talking about.
When you mentioned Christian Walker in there, it just sort of rung some alarm bells in my head of, man, are they going to end up in a situation where they go from Jose Abreu to Christian Walker and they're just never going to sign a first baseman over
I mean,
30.
Walker, they signed those 3 for 60, but
I
Abreu got a similar deal. Like, I
that's what
thought that was a great deal when Houston got Christian Walker.
I did too. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it, but it's crazy that they might get burned twice, and it's too early to
It's
give
too
up on
early.
Walker. But
Yeah.
it's just after again, it's one of those things where it shouldn't be connected, but for me, it does start to connect. Where it's like, man, what is going on there? Where these right-handed, first basemen go over there, they're past 30. Well, what's Christian Walker? He's 34.
He's
So he's
sneaky
not.
old. Yeah. I mean, I think Abreu was 36 when he
Yeah, he
signed,
was a
but
little older, but.
Christian Walker at this point is 34 years old, just turned 34.
Yeah, so it's been a really ugly start for him. I'm sure he'll figure it out, but yeah, it's like because of the Jose Abreu experience, part of me is just wondering, like maybe they need to try a kid at first base. I don't know.
It's funny. It's like a curse word, man. Yeah, yeah. Abreu signed going into his age 36 season, and he had a 625 OPS with Houston across 176 games. It, Abreu is like a borderline curse word when you talk about first base for the Astros, just because like that blew up in their face so quickly. I don't think Walker is going to be that case. And again, it's so early. Give him some time, but it is a little weird. And obviously, he was dealing with some injury in spring training as well. So, I mean, maybe he's just in the ramp up process. I don't know. So that takes us into kind of the top half of baseball. And there are three divisions left to talk about: the National League East, the National League West, and the American League East. Without providing any reasoning right now, because I want to go division by division, how would you rank those three divisions?
I think I'd probably say NL West. I mean, that's the obvious. I maybe lean AL East if you're just talking about having four competitive teams instead of three. But I think the best the NL East has to offer is better than the best the AL East has to offer. So I'm really torn between those two. I think the obvious answer at this point is just that the NL West is the best division in baseball. It's the one that I'm confident in. I'm really torn on the NL East and the AL East.
It's tough for me too, and I'm with you. I think it's a slam dunk personally that the NL West is the best division in baseball. They have four Goliaths in that division. I think San Francisco has proven, especially with the slow start for Willy Adames, that they are a Goliath. They're doing all of this without their $170 million shortstop playing to his standard. So you've got one of the more underrated bullpens in baseball, maybe the most underrated and one of the best. You have a rotation that features Logan Webb and others that are throwing their butts off right now. And then, hey, all of a sudden, Wilmer Flores and Mike Yastrzemski are balling out beyond belief. And you're doing this without Adames, and Lamont Wade has gotten off to a slow start. The thing that the only hangup for me in the National League West is I'm starting to buy what Peter's selling, that the Rockies may be worse than the White Sox. Like the Rockies may be far and away the worst team in Major League Baseball. So how much does that weigh a division down when you have far and away the worst team in Major League Baseball? I don't think much when four of the five are awesome. So I am personally with you. This is slam dunk, hands down. The National League West is the best division in baseball.
And you know what? When you have one bad team in the division, it props up those four good teams even more because theoretically, like the White Sox last year, those other teams should be beating up on that bad team. So yeah,
Except Cleveland. I think Cleveland was like mixed, and then everybody else just beat the living crap out of them.
yeah, no, I think that was the case last year. I think you're looking at this NL West right now, and there could be four teams that make the playoffs from this division. It absolutely could be the case. So yeah, I think the NL West, especially the Giants. The Giants could have gone either way to start the season. I wouldn't have been surprised, but the way that they have gone and how good they've looked, it just has taken this division to a whole nother level. I think before the season, a lot of us were saying, "Oh, the Diamondbacks are the team that's going to give the Dodgers a run for their money." And here are the Padres and the Giants just doing their thing. The other thing, when the Dodgers started off, what was 5-0 or 6-0, I remember thinking, is there going to be a time all season where we don't have the Dodgers atop our power rankings? And now I'm pretty positive they won't be when we do our first power rankings in a couple weeks here. So it is crazy how quickly things can change.
San Diego, why do you think that they're, the best team in baseball right now? Because San Diego, if the Dodgers are not going to slip past two, I assume, right? Like the Dodgers would be two because they have earned a top two ranking based on roster construction and the way they've won over the last however many years. Why would San Diego unseat the Dodgers at the top spot? Because of how good the top end talent is?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, the first name that came to my mind is to see Manny Machado looking like himself. Like when you remember that they have Tatis, Machado, and Merrill right now, it's as good as it gets. Obviously, the Dodgers have three pretty good guys in their lineup too, but I don't know. The Padres have, since last year just been rolling. And so you look at a great bullpen, a rotation to be able to pull off the Pivetta signing. I mean, that's, looking back, one of the best moves of the offseason, particularly the dollar amount they got him for. It's just a team that is way more complete than I think we anticipated when they looked very incomplete with a couple weeks left going into spring training, and they just made a couple of really good moves that have worked out so far. And it seems like a team that is gelling really well, and I don't know if they're going to really slow down.
San Diego, a 2.59 staff ERA is the second best in all of Major League Baseball, only behind who, Fink?
New York Mets, because of Max Kranick and Huascar Brazaban. That's why.
And Buto. Yeah, 2.34 ERA for the New York Mets. That is the best mark in all of baseball. And oh, by the way, San Diego is fifth in team OPS at 771. The Diamondbacks are second in team OPS at 789. And I just saw Corbin Carroll hit in 113, 435-foot grand slam yesterday. That guy could mess around and win the MVP. They're doing this without Ketel Marte. It's funny, like we make the joke, oh, the fourth place Diamondbacks, and they are the fourth place Diamondbacks. And the nature of this postseason structure is one of these teams is going to miss the postseason, and that stinks. I'm sorry for Arizona or San Francisco, whoever misses. I'm not ready to clump the Dodgers in there because they're not missing. Like you play 162, the Dodgers are going to be the best team in baseball in 2 months again. I'm positive. But it is interesting. Like Arizona's hitting as well as they are. Merrill Kelly had one blow up start, so the ERA looks a little different, but Kelly was awesome last night. Corbin Burns has not looked like peak Burns, but he's still been really good. And Zach Gallen has not looked like peak Gallen, but he still looks really good. There's just no opportunity to slip up in this division because you got guys that are not balling out overwhelmingly right now, while you do have Naylor kicking tail and Pavin Smith kicking tail and Alec Thomas kicking tail. It's just not good enough to be atop this division when you have a Tatis hitting 350 and you have Merrill hitting 350, and both of them are OPSing well over 1,000. It is just fascinating. How do you feel like this division is shaking out by the All-Star break? Like, do you think that one of these teams is a little fraudulent? I worry a teensy bit about San Francisco just because I don't know how sustainable Wilmer Flores and Mike Yastrzemski is.
Odd year Flores, man. I was looking into this for an article at the start of the week. Like, odd year Wilmer Flores seems to be a thing. Uh, but I don't know. I was gonna ask you if you had to pick which of these four teams doesn't make the playoffs, who is it? And I don't know where I go with that. I think my assumption would be right off of what you just said, where it's probably the Giants, but it's looked good so far.
It has. I still do think that the Padres are an injury two away from being a really thin team, so I could see this slow start tapering off for San Diego. But again, who am I to doubt superstars that are performing like superstars right now? And Tatis and I think Merrill is quickly approaching not superstar, but somewhere between star and super. I think he's already star, but like those guys, I can't bet on them to taper off, while I can bet on Yastrzemski and Wilmer to taper off a little bit. But if odd year Wilmer Flores is a thing, I'm drunk on that Kool-Aid, baby. Let's do it. Let's try and separate the National League East and the American League East. The American League East, I think you could make the case like 1 through 5, they're stronger than the National League East.
Yeah.
But the NL East, they've got that top end talent, and then even like their quote unquote bottom two teams, and Atlanta is in last place at that point. Atlanta is the best last place team in baseball, and you can't convince me otherwise. But they're two quote unquote bottom two teams with the two lowest projected win totals, and obviously I've got a ton of bias here. Like the Marlins are scrappy as hell right now, and the Nats are scrappy as hell. We know that. Like the Marlins have had guys step up. Max Meyer looks like a different
Yeah.
version of Max Meyer. He looks phenomenal, and you just watched him go 6 in a third shutout in New York.
Yeah.
Forgetting Ryan Weathers back, in a matter of weeks. Weather's looked amazing during spring training. And then Washington has James Wood, who looks like a top 10 player in Major League Baseball right now. So I don't think the bottom of that NL East is as far behind the American League East as a lot of people would expect. There's one team that's just screaming red flags to me, and it's Baltimore in those two divisions. And it's just a little weird. I'm having trouble kind of separating how I value a more even AL East and a more, I don't know, disparate NL East when I don't think it's that disparate anymore.
Yeah, I think if we were to power rank the 10 teams in these two divisions, I'd imagine we would probably have the Mets and the Phillies pretty high onto those power rankings. Like those are the two teams I feel pretty good are going to make the playoffs. Um, but at the same time, you have the Braves that I don't know where you'd put them in a power ranking right now because of the slow start. If the Braves were playing like the Braves of normal, I'd probably lean just to the top heavy aspect of the NL East. Because of the Braves start, I think it's fair to maybe say the AL East is better just because it's four teams right now that I believe are over 500, right? Everybody but the, oh no, the Rays are basic. Rays and Red Sox are actually both the game under.
Yeah.
I don't know though. I really don't know. The Orioles are a weird one though because that being the last place team in the AL East, we wouldn't be surprised if in a couple months they figured it out and that lineup became one of the better lineups in baseball. But you're very concerned about their pitching at this point, and yeah, it could be one of those years where the Orioles really disappoint. I guess the more I think about it, maybe I'd lean the top end of the NL East, but it's just sort of like you said, it's kind of the debate of quantity over quality.
Yeah, and right now, like I'm looking at an Orioles rotation. Eflin's been Eflin. Eflin's just been good. 6 runs in 18 innings. It's a 3 ERA. He's only struck out 8. And I understand Eflin doesn't need to strike guys out to be effective, but when you see that low of a strikeout total, I start to get a little nervous because it's like, okay, guys are seeing you decent enough. Chances are you could run into a blow up start, but I'm not going to doubt Eflin. But then you go to like Cade Povich. How long is 3 starts at a 3.6 ERA going to last? Shigano, how long is 3 starts at a 3.9 ERA going to last? And then Dean Kramer and Charlie Morton have been brutal at this point. So I am with you, yes. Like in 2 months, could we see Baltimore being in postseason position? Absolutely. In 2 months, could we be talking about Baltimore as being outside the playoff picture entirely? Absolutely.
What do you do if they are? Like they're in such a weird spot. If they're completely out of it by the deadline, what do they do? Because you're on borrowed time with a lot of these guys.
I think with how good Mullins is playing and Mullins' team control dwindling, I think you make that move. You ship him out and get a prospect return. You just paid O'Neill big time. I think you move that first base tandem of O'Hearn and Mountcastle. I also don't know if they'll let it get there, frankly. I think they could honestly, I bet it's more likely that they move Kobe Mayo in the next month if they look like they're slipping away than selling at the trade deadline. I think that they're going to do everything in their power to stay in the hunt, and that may result in a missed postseason berth, but we'll see what happens, man. Honestly, I have minimal concerns about the Red Sox. We haven't even seen Roman Anthony get a big league plate appearance yet, and when Roman comes up, like I'm pretty confident. We just saw Garrett Crochet's best start in a Red Sox uniform. Granted, he's only had 3. Bueller is limiting damage, and he's been really effective for them so far. We'll say Boston could really use Quinn Priester at the moment. Like they're running out of starting pitching, but they don't have that. The Yankees are just more flawed. Like, and obviously you look at the Yankees up top and you see what they're doing. Toronto is a flawed team at the top of a division. The Yankees are more flawed at the top of their division than I think that the Mets and the Phillies are. So I do think that I give the edge to the National League East here.
Yeah, I think as you kind of go through all those rosters, it does more scream out. Okay, well, Phillies and Mets. What questions do we have right now? They've both gotten off to such a good start that you feel like those teams are going to be fine. Where there's a lot of variety of outcomes that you can find with pretty much every one of those teams in the AL East. Where I think there's a couple you feel pretty good about in the NL East, and then They're still the wild card of the Braves, and like you said, those bottom dwellers for the NL East typically have been kind of scrappy to start the season.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it's funny, like my questions around the Phillies are about like Jordan Romano. They're not
yeah,
about like huge pieces. It's about a setup guy.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Phillies right now are looking like a team that just doesn't have many holes and probably should just kind of cruise this season. If you wanted to poke some holes in the Mets, that's when the managing editor of Just Baseball typically wakes up. That's what that alarm was. When you're up as late as I am doing stuff. But anyway, yeah, I think that the Phillies are going to make the playoffs. And I think the Mets, there might be some questions about their rotation, but I think they've also shown that they have so much depth
Yeah.
that they've been able to navigate it. And obviously, they have the best ERA in baseball right now. So,
Aside from the rotation, and they're getting Manaya back and they're working on getting Montas back. So it's like that fills out their rotation, and Canning has been good. He was amazing in spring training and he's been good. I was not expecting that, but lo and behold, here we are. Holmes has looked good through 4 innings. Obviously, he struggled, but he's trying to build up a little bit. And then Peterson is Peterson. They've got rotation options. And I didn't even mention Senga, who looks like Kodai Senga again. He looks like that 23 version of Senga. If you were to identify a weak spot right now, what would it be? Because like I feel like the two weak spots are what you're running out in Beatty and Acuna right now, but there's an immediate remedy when Jeff McNeil comes back, and then running out Terens and Sanger right now, but there's an immediate remedy when Francisco Alvarez comes back. So where lies the weakness of the New York Mets?
so I'll say, and Terens and Sanger have been unbelievable to start the year, particularly Terens. He's hitting ridiculously well. Uh, I think the hole for the Mets right now, center field, is definitely a hole. Jose Siri just went down, and he wasn't hitting anyway.
No.
I I have been encouraged by what I've seen out of Acuna, and I think Acuna might be the answer in center field. I honestly think that might be what they end up doing. If Jeff McNeil comes back and is hitting, I could see them because Arm and I were talking about this on Locked On Mets last week, where I was just mentioning how you have a player in Acuna who, to me, especially at the time, looks like he needed some more seasoning in AAA just to get the at bats where you need him to be. He's the perfect guy to be on a big league bench because of the defense and the speed, but there's still potentially an above average regular in there. He just needs to get those at bats. And so we were talking, that's before Siri went down, about the idea of stealing a game a week with Acuna in center. Now I could see Acuna in a month maybe being the Mets starting center fielder. It wouldn't surprise me
Hmm.
because all of a sudden he is a little more patient in the box. It's been a week of this, but the discipline has gotten a little bit better. Earlier in the season, it seemed like he either had to tell himself not to swing or he was just swinging all the time.
Yeah.
And now it seems like he's sort of starting to put together some really good at bats. So Acuna maybe answering center field is an option, but center field's a whole. And Jesse Winker and Staunton Marte have not looked great so far.
Fair.
So the DH spot might be a little bit of a question mark, but I still haven't seen Brandon Nimmo and Mark Vientos look like themselves. I haven't seen Juan Soto, despite the 850 OPS, look like Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor gotten off to another slow start. So there's still that level this lineup can get to. Even when Pete Alonso is naturally going to come back a little bit, there's four guys in this lineup that should be able to pick up the slack.
Last thing before we wrap, um, asking the premier Mets mind that I know. Where are you at on Beatty?
He needs a change of scenery is where I'm at on Beatty.
Okay.
I mean, he just needs to go somewhere else, get to some, fifth place team where there's going to be no eyes on him. He could just play in the big leagues for a whole season and maybe figure it out. It looks pretty mental to me, the struggles that he's had. And
Okay.
I don't think that it's going to change, especially because you can't just keep giving him opportunities. I mean, this was his opportunity with McNeil out, and now Acuna has supplanted him. Like, I don't see a reason why they're not going to just keep going to Acuna when he's looking confident at least. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think Beatty needs to go somewhere else, but I also don't think the Mets are going to be in any rush to move him because they are watching Mark Vientos struggle a little bit, and I don't think that they would mind just sticking Beatty in AAA, seeing if they get him hot, and you never know. It's still decent depth, but it looks like it's if it's going to happen, it's not going to be with the Mets.
That's unfortunate, but I understand. Like, just sucks with the way that Beatty was billed. And I remember reading your article at the beginning of Just Baseball. Like, is Beatty the answer at is he the first answer since David Wright at the hot corner? I'm going
Oh
to bring it
man.
up. I have no problem bringing it up. But all right, to wrap, in terms of divisional power rankings, I go NL West to clear cut one. I side with the NL East two, AL East three, AL West four, NL Central five, AL Central six. Do you
Yeah.
agree, or would you change anything?
I think that's spot on, and I think it further shows the point of the NL being the stronger league at this stage. You know, to have the NL East over the AL East, I think that's right. To be able to have the NL Central over the AL Central at the bottom, I think that is the perfect ranking for right now.
Cool. All right, Ryan Finkelstein, appreciate you hopping on, and we'll hear from you. Yeah, I think once or twice a month. Cool.
Sounds good.
Cool beans. Again, every link you need is in the episode description. Be sure to listen and leave a review, 5 stars wherever you do listen to your podcasts. Peter and Aram, yeah, I think Peter and Aram are back with you on Friday. Thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you soon.